If you haven't seen the first video I did on this car, I suggest you check it out. This is a 1986 Porsche 928, and it has a Mark Robinson mid-mount turbo kit on it. I bought this about a month and a half ago now, and I really haven't had much time to mess with it, but today we're going to change that. We're going to put it up in the air. I'm going to look underneath the car for the very first time. I mean, I've kind of poked around on jack stands and stuff, but we're going to see how much more work I'm up against, what other surprises lie underneath, and then we're going to maybe throw a wideband in it so I know exactly how lean or rich it is running. Well, let's get started. So, let's see how bad or good this really is. Is the wastegate not even connected? I don't think the wastegate is connected. Nope, it's hooked up differently. It's hooked up like a internal gate, so we'll probably have to change that. Good news is it doesn't have any damage from hitting any of this, which is surprising with how low this is. Oh, this kit came with the coat hanger mounts. Yeah, we're gonna have to change that. Why is this even here? There's a mount for this right here. Why would you even need this? And it's been there for a while. It's got a mark on both sides from the exhaust. Does the exhaust not have any mounts? Oh, I see. This isn't really supported. Why is that the case? Oh, there's a problem. That's on the wastegate. So that operated the wastegate. So you don't use this cheap crap line. Oh, all right. Well, that's got to get fixed right away. But there's really nothing to support this. Nothing I've seen yet. That is the only thing supporting that is that coat hanger on the exhaust. So we're gonna have to fix that. So moving forward, it's a German car, so it's leaking. At least it won't rust. But the exhaust looks pretty decent. Most of this is dry. I think a lot of this had to come from when it puked out like 4 quarts of oil when that penny came loose. Outside of that, the only other things I see that are apparently wrong, at least easily apparently wrong, it has a million zip ties in places they don't belong. Now, I like zip and cable ties. I use them. I use them a lot on the Land Cruiser, but they have their place, and holding a hot oil line is not one of them. So this is the charge piping from the turbo. This is passenger side exhaust manifold. So it looks like it goes up and then makes a 90 and another 90 and then another 90 to go up behind the passenger side cylinder head. It fits. I don't really like it. It needs some heat wrap for sure. Man, this fabrication, I can't get past this. Look at that. That exhaust strap, and then the holes cut in here are sharp edged. So if this pushes back for any reason, it's just going to slice right into it. And the clamps aren't even on here right. And let's talk about the fact that they're worm clamps. They don't go on charge piping. So now I'm going to find a good place for this wideband. This car only uses one oxygen or lambda sensor. And that's what the narrowband gauge is reading off of, which that's got to go. And I'd prefer to get this after the two banks join. So it's probably going to be in this area. There's plenty of room to get this in here. Of course, you want to go over the halfway mark, point it down just a hair. So I think we're just going to go right there. Cool. So I've got my hole drilled for my wideband. It's just perfect size for this. I think I got that tapped in there. And there's the original exhaust, well, the exhaust gaskets I pulled off. It's time to buy new ones, so I got a pair of new ones here. I don't know if they're going to be the best quality, but they'll do for now. They're pretty easy to change anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and get this welded in, and then we'll get this wide pipe back in. So my work under here is just about done. I've got my wideband bung installed, and please don't judge me on my welds. I'm not a professional by any stretch.
But I've got the sensor in, the wiring is secured, and it's run through the existing hole for the original oxygen sensor. So that's ready to go. I got to wire it on the inside. I got new gaskets on the Y pipe. Kind of readjusted everything. I'm also not an engineer, but this is kind of what I rigged up with a hose clamp and a little metal bracket to kind of keep this in place. This is 10 times more solid than it used to be. It was held up with zip ties before. I think that's an improvement. I've straightened some things out back here as well. For one, I made this super cheesy bracket to hold the turbo up. It's just a temporary thing. Eventually, I'll be putting a flex section before the turbo so that the vibrations from the engine won't crack any of the welds. I don't know why that wasn't engineered into this kit originally, but it will need to be done eventually. I've also replumbed the wastegate, so now it has a proper source right off the compressor housing. It's plumbed like an internal gate, but for running wastegate pressure, I don't see that as a big problem. I've also got the bypass valve source fixed, but I have my doubts as to how well this will work, being it is very far away from the engine, which is the vacuum source for the bypass valve. I think what I'm going to have to do is run a large vacuum source hose, probably teed into the vacuum booster, probably use some nickel copper brake line, like 1/4 inch or something along that line to feed this to make this operate correctly. As I was working on other parts of this car, I noticed a few things like the brake pad wear sensor is just hanging out, just loose. But the main issue I see here is look at this jam nut. I mean, why? Why would you look at that and go, hey, that looks good? Anybody that's ever done an alignment would be shaking their heads at that. That's just, God, what else am I going to find? I've got the throttle body boot. This is the elbow that goes towards the throttle body, and this is what was on the car. This is so much worse looking at it off the car than it was when it was on the car. I don't even know where to start. But this is leaving. Thankfully, this was inside the car. So I'll be using this with no modifications, just the way it comes. And then this is an intake air temp sender that it was threaded into the silicone. Yep, that's how it was. So I'm going to go find something that this threads into and then weld it onto the charge piping before this so that this has a proper place to go. God, this is just... How is this so bad? Time to address the mass air extension harness. So here is tied into the factory harness, and this isn't terrible. I've definitely seen worse. And then they've got this universal connector, which is alright. But then they have this. And like the terminals just fall out of this. Like you can just pull them out. You just pull them out all like they're just hanging out in there, and the inside of this connector is all beat out of it from these things moving around. This has to be addressed. This is, I don't know who does this and goes, yep, that'll do. So we're gonna go ahead and chop this out, and yeah, that's not my kind of wiring. I've gone ahead and disconnected this universal connector. I don't really feel like doing this bent over in the engine bay. And I've pulled the extension harness out as far as I can. I've gone ahead and cut these short and staggered so that way when I go to put these heat shrink butt connectors in line, they're not all in the same location. Otherwise it won't fit underneath the heat shrink that I've got. I got this large heat shrink that will make this look nice and hopefully keep moisture and other elements out. But we're gonna go ahead and cut this to match this so that I don't have any jumbled up wires, and we're gonna get this done. While it may not be perfect, it still is a ton better than just terminals shoved into an open connector. So I've got plenty of slack to plug into the other side of that connector. We're gonna go ahead and plug that back in and secure this the way it was before, and go ahead and install the charge piping, which I've welded a bung to, which is actually part of a Toyota lug nut. That worked pretty good. It's I think it's 12 by 150. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get this all put back together with the new throttle body boot and maybe take it for a spin, see how it runs. All right, let's give it the old start, test everything. It's operating. I gotta get rid of the steering wheel too. Watch this flex. It's kind of hard to see, but that's not okay. Not for me. Seems to react okay. Runs better than it did before I sorted all that vacuum mess. But now we've got a fuel leak. Here's that cheap FMU. I don't know why. This was supposed to have a Vortec on it, but it's seeping fuel out of the bottom side of it. Oh yeah, that's great. All right, well, we're gonna shut it off and go spend some money. I think that's what happens when you own a Porsche. You just get to a point and spend more money. While I'm waiting for a new FMU to come in, it is time to address this custom crankcase ventilation routing. I'm not quite sure where that might have gone, but hey, at least I have an extra Porsche bolt, the only one like it. It runs to this. It's got some sort of vacuum source valve. I guess it's controlled. And then if you come down here, that's where this, see if I can get this in focus here. As you can see, this is really good down here.
I pulled the crankcase ventilation hose off of whatever diaphragm the vacuum source is connected to underneath the passenger side charge pipe, and it just came off with no tools. There was not a clamp on it. There was at some point, but it is super brittle. It's just, this was obviously deteriorating for some time. So I've got my work cut out for me. I have some rather interesting news. I actually was able to get a hold of Mark Robinson himself. I sent him some messages on Facebook, which probably made me seem like a crazy person, but he actually replied, told me some information I was really hoping to find out. He actually owned this car and sold it in the early 2000s, and it's been in a small collision on the left front, which that really doesn't bother me. He told me that I need to use a 6-to-1 FMU, and I assumed it was a 10-to-1, and I almost bought a 10-to-1 FMU just because it had such small injectors. It has 20-pound injectors in it, and apparently those aren't supposed to be in there. It's supposed to have 30-pound injectors in it, which, ironically, I found in a bag in the back of this car. So this week I'm going to take these in and get them cleaned and tested, make sure they're ready to go, new O-rings, and I'll get the intake manifold off, get these installed. Hopefully the FMU shows up. I'll replace a bunch of stuff while I'm in there because that's my normal mode of operation. And I need to go over the entire crankcase ventilation system. It's all dry and hard and coming apart. I'll probably put a catch can in there, and I'll probably end up putting a fuel pump in it because I have no idea what's in it. I just don't want to blow this engine up. I know I sound like I'm complaining about this car, like it's just an awful car, or the guy that worked on it was such an idiot. Well, that may all be true, but the reality is, if this car wasn't such a piece of crap, there's no way I'd own it. And I'm not saying that everything I own is terrible, but if it was nice, if this car was really well looked after and didn't need any work and had a nice interior, it would have been priced way out of my budget, or someone else would have bought it. And for that, I'm very grateful that it's in such need of my time and effort. And hopefully when I'm done with it, it'll be a nice car to drive. I can blow the tires off and drive it the way I want to, and I'll have something I always wanted. Hopefully I'll be able to post an update within the next few weeks or maybe a month. I'll try to keep you guys up to date on what I'm doing, and thanks for watching. See you next time.